You promised me the very first stars, and I have counted every minute since.
Then we begin the way we always do by turning to follow the light backward.
Back past all those far galaxies we already waved hello to and further out?
Even further back than those, to the first light the stars themselves ever made.
Wait, I thought the first light of all was the thing we were after.
The oldest light of all is older even than the stars, so we keep it for later.
So the light we chase today is the first that the stars ever switched on?
Just so, and we give it a lovely name, the first starlight. Today we go looking for the very first starlight in the whole of the sky.
So where does the light take us at the very start?
It carries us back to a young sky that held not one single star anywhere at all.
A whole sky and not one star shining anywhere in it?
For a long stretch after the beginning, the whole sky stayed dark.
That sounds so lonely and so very quiet.
It was the patient quiet before anything at all had ever shone.
Waiting, patiently, for the very first light to finally arrive?
Waiting for gravity to do something wonderful with almost nothing.
Almost nothing, and yet you sound so excited about it.
Because that almost nothing was the simplest stuff there has ever been.
The simplest stuff, the very plainest of all, in the whole universe.
The light gas left over from the very beginning and nothing heavier yet.
None of the good heavy things our own star would make much later?
Not one speck of those, only the plainest gas of all. Every single first star began as a plain gathering of that simplest gas.
So gravity slowly gathers that plain gas together?
Gravity pulls it inward and closer and denser over long ages.
And a plain pile of gas, in the very end, becomes something truly grand?
As it crowds together, it grows hotter and hotter deep inside.
Hotter and hotter until something finally happens?
Until the very middle grows hot enough to catch a light.
You mean it truly begins, all on its own, to shine?
In one quiet moment, the first star of all switches on.
And just like that, the long dark is finally broken?
One bright new star now shines where nothing ever had before.
The very first starlight, spilling out across all the wide sky.
The first light any star had ever made, spilling out into the dark.
Is it much like the friendly stars we know tonight?
Not quite, for these first ones were far grander than ours.
Grander in what way? So much bigger or so much brighter?
Giant and blazing, many times the size of our own star.
Giants, oh my, almost too much for me to picture.
And such giants race through their fuel at tremendous speed.
So they do not last very long at all?
Only a few short million years, and then they are gone.
That feels so very quick somehow, for something quite so grand.
A brief and brilliant life, and yet it changed the whole sky forever.
How long did the sky wait in the dark before that very first one?
A very long while indeed, longer than any of us could feel.
Could you put a gentle number, even a rough one, on that long wait?
Roughly a few 100 million years passed before the first star lit.
A few 100 million years, just imagine, of nothing but quiet dark.
We say it softly, for the exact moment is not yet pinned down.
Firm ink for the story, and a soft pencil for the exact when.
Just so, and I will keep marking clearly which is which.
So how could we ever hope to see a light so terribly, terribly old?
Here comes the loveliest little trick in all of stargazing.
A trick, oh please tell me everything at once.
Light is wonderfully quick, yet it still takes time to cross such vast space.
So the light we see set out long ago, ages before it ever reached us?
Every light in the sky is a small gift from the past.
You mean the gentle starlight tonight is really, truly old news?
The farther away a thing sits, the longer its light has been traveling.
So looking far away is a little like looking backward.
To peer across the vast distance is truly to peer into the deep past.
Then a great big telescope is a kind of time machine?
The deepest telescopes are exactly that, gentle machines for looking back.
How far back can the very finest of them peer?
Back toward the young sky, toward the earliest light we can still catch.
And what do they actually find, way out there, waiting for us?
The faintest and most ancient galaxies, glowing softly from long ago.
The very earliest galaxies of them all?
The earliest galaxies we know of, the oldest light we have ever caught.
Are those tiny lights the very first stars themselves?
Not quite the single first stars, but the closest we can yet reach.
So close and yet still just beyond our reaching fingertips?
We catch whole distant galaxies and we lean in toward the first stars inside them.
It is like finding a candle by the glow of a whole bright room?
A fair way to say it, for the room is far easier to see than the flame.
So the deep telescopes carry us right to the edge of the dawn?
To the very brink of that cosmic dawn, closer than anyone before us.
That is the most patient kind of looking I could ever imagine.
And it is honest looking, which matters more to us than anything.
But we have not truly seen one of those first stars up close?
Not a single one on its very own, if we are being honest.
Why do they hide from us, of all things, quite so well?
They are simply too faint and far, and their giant lives too brief.
So we only glimpse the great crowds they once lived in?
We glimpse the earliest galaxies, and we keep reaching for the stars within.
Do we find little hints of them along the way?
We find soft hints and clues, and we creep a little closer every year.
So the very first single star is still a soft pencil sketch?
Held carefully in pencil until the day we can finally hold its picture.
And the dark before it, and the simplest gas, those are firm ink?
Firm ink indeed, along with the giant, brief nature of the first stars.
I do love that you always tell me, so plainly, which is which.
It is the only honest way to share such a grand old story.
So one small star truly began the whole shining sky?
One first star broke a dark that had lasted since the beginning.
And every star after it followed from that first one?
From that first spark came the long bright family of all the stars.
Even the friendly ones I can see from my own window?
Every last one of them traces home to that first switching on.
So tonight's sky is really a very old promise kept?
A promise the dark once made, and the first star quietly answered.
It makes me want to look up and simply thank it.
Have you ever loved the first soft light of a sunrise?
More than almost anything truly in the whole wide world.
This was the first light of every single star, the sunrise of all sunrises.
The very first light of all the stars.
The very first, and it still glows faintly toward us even now.
One dark sky, one first star, and here we are looking back at it.
And here we stand, the far-off children of that very first light.
So where does the light lead us on our very next adventure?
The path leads us back into the long dark that waited before any star.
Into the long dark that waited before the first light of all?
Into that hushed and patient quiet to visit the sky in its stillest hour.
I cannot wait to stand in the great quiet before the stars.
We will wander into that quiet together very soon.
This has been the most wondrous beginning to a season.
A grand first light indeed, and one shared by everything that shines.
I will never, ever look at a plain night sky the same way again.
Nor will I, now that we know the first light it once held.
If the biggest questions thrill you, then come along with us.
Subscribe and keep tracing the light homeward right beside us.
A whole season of origins is still waiting just ahead of us.
An entire season of them, each one marked in careful ink and pencil. Until the next light, keep your kind eyes on the patient sky.
See you out there, explorers.